I'm Lily. The courtroom was filled with a tense silence as the judge's words echoed through the air. The court hereby awards full custody of Emily to Mr. Thompson. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was quickly followed by a pang of sadness as I looked at my mother, standing alone and defeated. It was a moment that would change the course of my life, but it was also the culmination of a long and painful journey. Growing up in Seattle, Washington, my life seemed picture perfect on the outside. We lived in a beautiful two-story house in a quiet neighborhood, where kids played in the yards and neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles. My father, David, was a dedicated accountant, always buried in his financial reports. My mother, Sarah, was a social butterfly, constantly hosting elegant dinner parties. And my little sister, Emily, who was 6 years younger than me, was the light of our family, with her infectious laughter and endless curiosity. But beneath the surface, our family was far from perfect. My grandmother, Helen, was the real powerhouse in our family. She started a small organic food store in the heart of Seattle, working long hours to make it a success. Over the years, she expanded her business into a multi-million-dollar chain called Greenleaf Organics, which was well known for its high-quality products across the Pacific Northwest. Grandma Helen was a tough but kind woman. She had a booming laugh that could fill a room and an uncanny ability to spot talent. She always told me, "Lily, you've got a creative mind. Use it to build something great." I would blush and nod, sketching designs for cafes and restaurants in my notebook, dreaming of becoming an interior designer. However, at home, the tension between my parents was palpable. My father managed Greenleaf Organics, dealing with inventory and financial planning. But my mother never let him forget that it was her mother's business. One evening, I was lying on my bed, sketching a design for a children's play area for Emily, when I heard their voices raised downstairs. "You're nothing without my mother's business, David," my mother shouted, her voice sharp and cold. "This house, this lifestyle, it's all because of her. You should be grateful I'm still with you." I froze, my pencil hovering over the page. My father's voice was quieter, but full of pain. "I'm doing my best, Sarah. Why can't you see that?" Emily crept into my room, her big blue eyes wide with fear. "Why are they fighting, Lily?" she whispered. I pulled her close, forcing a smile. "It's just grown-up stuff, Em. Do you want to help me color this?" But inside, I was seething with anger at how my mother made my father feel so small. Over the next few weeks, the atmosphere at home became unbearable. Every meal was silent, except for the clinking of cutlery. My mother barely looked at my father, and when she did, her eyes were filled with disdain. I tried to keep Emily distracted, taking her to the park or teaching her to draw flowers, but she could sense the storm brewing. One day after school, I came home to find my father in the living room, a suitcase by his side. My heart dropped. "Dad?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He turned, his face pale and his eyes red. He walked over to me and pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I can't stay here anymore. It's not good for any of us." I pushed back, panic rising in my chest. "What about Emily? What about me?" I asked, my voice cracking. He cupped my face, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I love you both more than anything. But sometimes, love isn't enough to fix things." He then knelt down in front of Emily, who was watching from the couch, clutching her teddy bear. "Be good for your big sister, okay, Em?" he said, hugging her tightly. Then he picked up his suitcase and walked out the door, the sound of it closing like a gunshot in my ears. When my mother came home later, I told her that my father had left. She didn't even flinch. "Good riddance," she muttered, throwing her purse on the table. I stared at her in disbelief. "How can you say that?" I asked. She turned to me, her eyes cold as ice. "Your father cheated on me, Lily. Over and over again. I couldn't take it anymore. Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but I was too shocked. That night, I lay in bed, listening to my mother laughing on the phone in her room. Who was she talking to? I didn't know, and I was too exhausted to care. All I knew was that our family was broken, and I had no idea how to put it back together. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my mother dropped another bombshell. One morning, as Emily and I were having breakfast, she announced with a big smile, "I have news. I'm getting married." I nearly choked on my cereal. "What?" I managed to say. Emily's spoon dropped to the table. "Mom, Dad's only been gone a few months." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Sometimes, true love comes when you least expect it, Lily. You'll understand one day." 2 weeks later, Jake moved into our house. He was tall and had a charming smile, but there was something about him that made me uneasy. He was overly nice to Emily, playing board games with her and helping her with her homework, but he barely acknowledged me. It was as if I was invisible in my own home. Things also started to change at Greenleaf Organics. After my father left, my mother took over the company and brought Jake along as her right-hand man. They would spend hours in the study, discussing new marketing strategies and expansion plans. I would overhear bits and pieces, and it all sounded like Jake's ideas, not my mother's. She hung on his every word, laughing at his jokes while I felt more and more like an outsider. One evening, my mother called Emily and me into the living room. Jake was standing there, looking smug. "We're moving," my mother announced as if it was the most normal thing in the world. "To Portland, Oregon. There's a new branch of Greenleaf opening, and it's a great opportunity." My heart sank. A new city, a new school. I looked at Emily, who was as confused as I was. "What about us?" I asked, my voice trembling. My mother's smile didn't waver. "Well, Lily, we've thought about it, and it's better if you stay here. The new house is small, and you're almost done with high school. Changing schools now would mess up your studies. You'll stay with your grandmother. She's already agreed." I couldn't believe my ears. "So, I'm supposed to be left behind?" I snapped, my hands shaking. My mother rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. It'll be fine." Emily started to cry. "I don't want to leave, Lily," she sobbed. I wanted to hug her and tell her everything would be okay, but I was too angry. I stormed into my room, slamming the door behind me. Lying on my bed, I stared at the ceiling, hot tears streaming down my face. When had I become such a burden to my own mother? The next few weeks were a blur of packing and goodbyes. Emily cried every night, begging me to come with her. I helped her pack her toys and books, trying to keep her spirits up. "Will you visit me, Lily?" she asked one night, her voice small and scared. I hugged her tightly. "Of course, Em. You can't get rid of me that easily." But inside, I was terrified of being alone. The day they left, I stood on the porch with Grandma Helen, watching the moving van drive away. My mother gave me a quick, cold hug, and Jake just nodded at me. Emily clung to me until my mother pulled her away. As the van disappeared around the corner, I felt like a part of me had gone with it. Living with Grandma Helen was different from what I expected. Her house was a cozy cottage on the outskirts of Seattle, filled with the smell of freshly baked bread and old books. She gave me space to be sad, but she was always there with a cup of tea and a listening ear when I needed to talk. "You're stronger than you think, Lily," she would say, her eyes full of kindness. Time passed, and before I knew it, I was turning 20. I woke up that morning feeling empty. I should have been excited about starting a new decade, but all I could think about was my broken family. My mother called, her voice sickly sweet. "Happy birthday, Lily. I'm so sorry we can't be there. Work is crazy right now. We'll celebrate when we visit." I mumbled a thanks, knowing full well they hadn't visited once since they moved to Portland. But Grandma Helen had other plans. She invited my friends over, ordered my favorite pizza, and baked a chocolate cake. For a few hours, surrounded by laughter and music, I almost forgot about my troubles. The next morning, Grandma Helen called me into her office. Her face was serious, and my stomach tightened. "Sit down, Lily," she said, pointing to a chair. I sat down, feeling nervous. Then she smiled and slid a folder across the table. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Open it." My hands trembled as I opened the folder. When I saw the papers inside, I gasped. "Grandma, is this?" She nodded, her smile widening. "Greenleaf Organics is yours now, Lily. I see so much potential in you. You're the one to take this company to the next level." I was in shock. Me, a 20-year-old, owning a multi-million-dollar company? It felt like a dream. But my mother and Jake were running it. "But Mom and Jake," I stammered. Grandma Helen's expression hardened. "They're running a branch in Portland. The main company, the heart of Greenleaf, belongs to you. They don't have a say anymore." My head was spinning. This was both a gift and a huge responsibility. What did I know about running a company? I was still learning how to manage my own finances. Grandma Helen leaned forward. "There's one more thing, Lily. Call your father. There's more to his story than you know. Give him a chance to explain." I hesitated. I hadn't spoken to my father in years. The thought of calling him was terrifying. But Grandma Helen's eyes were full of trust, so I nodded. "I'll try," I whispered. It took me a week to gather the courage to call my father. When we met at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle, I felt a lump in my throat. He looked older, with more lines on his face, but when he saw me, his face lit up. We sat down, and at first, it was awkward. But then, I started to tell him everything that had happened since he left: the divorce, my mother's remarriage, the move, and Grandma Helen's gift. He listened, his face a mix of pain and pride. When I finished, he took a deep breath. "Lily, there's something you need to know. Your mother belittled me for years. She made me feel like I was nothing in her family. One night, after a terrible fight, I made a mistake. I cheated, but I regretted it immediately. Your mother used it against me, threatening to take you and Emily away and ruin me. I left because I thought it would protect you both." I sat there, stunned. This wasn't the story my mother had told me. My father wasn't a villain, he was a broken man. "Why didn't you fight?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He looked at me, his eyes soft. "Because of you and Emily. I wanted you to have a peaceful life, not be caught in a messy divorce." As we talked, I felt the anger I had carried for years start to melt away. Before we left, I took a deep breath. "Dad, would you help me with Greenleaf? As a consultant?" His face broke into a smile. "I'd love to, Lily." The months after I became the owner of Greenleaf Organics were a whirlwind. I was juggling college applications and studying for exams, while also trying to understand the ins and outs of running a company. My father started helping me, sending me emails with advice on inventory management and customer relations. It was good to have him back in my life. One warm Seattle evening, Grandma Helen and I were celebrating my acceptance into the University of Washington with a takeout dinner. I was going to study interior design with a minor in business. We were halfway through our meal when the doorbell rang. Grandma Helen frowned, not expecting anyone. "I'll get it," I said, putting down my fork. When I opened the door, I felt my stomach drop. There stood my mother and Jake, looking like they had just stepped out of a business meeting. Without saying a word, they pushed past me into the house. "Mother, we need to talk about the company," my mother said, not even looking at me. "Why can't we access the main accounts? And what's this about blocking funds to the Portland branch?" Grandma Helen stood up, her face like stone. "It's not your decision anymore, Sarah. Greenleaf belongs to Lily now. She decides the future and finances of the company. The room went silent, and the air was thick with tension. My mother's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed. Jake's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. My mother's whole demeanor changed. She turned to me, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Lily, sweetheart, I've missed you so much. Why don't you come live with us in Portland? We have a beautiful house, and we can set up a studio for you. I was taken aback. After all these years of being ignored, was she serious? I stepped back. No, Mom. I'm happy here. I have my friends, my school, and Grandma needs me. Her smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. Well, if that's the problem, we can move back to Seattle. We can live in our old house again. Wouldn't that be nice? I shook my head. It's not about the house, Mom. It's about everything. My mother's eyes flashed with anger. But before she could say anything, I asked the question that had been burning inside me for years. Why did you really divorce Dad? She froze, her face turning pale. Your father cheated on me, Lily. Multiple times. I got tired of it. I looked at her, my voice firm. That's not true, Mom. Dad told me everything. It was one time, after years of you tearing him down. You kicked him out, and he's been paying alimony all this time. My mother's face twisted in rage. How dare you? You ungrateful little. Grandma Helen stepped forward, her voice calm but sharp. That's enough, Sarah. You've forgotten who built this company. I gave Greenleaf to Lily because I trust her, not you. It's time for you to leave. I watched as Grandma Helen escorted my mother and Jake out of the house. The door closed behind them, and I sank onto the couch, a mix of sadness and relief washing over me. My mother's words had hurt, but they couldn't break me. For the first time, I felt like I was standing on my own 2 feet. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of voices downstairs. I tiptoed to the living room and saw my father sitting with Grandma Helen. Their faces were serious but warm. I joined them, and Grandma Helen got straight to the point. I've been thinking about Emily. Your mother isn't in a good place to take care of her right now. I've told your father to seek custody. My heart skipped a beat. Really, Dad? Are you going to? He ran his hand through his hair. Yeah, Lily. It won't be easy, but Emily deserves better. I threw my arms around him, tears in my eyes. Thank you, Dad. Grandma Helen continued. I hired a private investigator to look into your mother and Jake. A few weeks later, she showed us the report. It was worse than I'd imagined. My mother had been having an affair with Jake long before the divorce. There were hotel receipts and expensive gifts. And Jake was a con man. He had a history of charming rich women, stealing their money, and then disappearing. He was planning to siphon funds from Greenleaf and run away. We set up a meeting with my mother. When she arrived at Grandma Helen's house, she was angry and defensive. We showed her the evidence, but she refused to believe it. This is nonsense. Jake loves me. You're all just jealous, she shouted. My father tried to reason with her. Sarah, think about Emily. Is this the kind of man you want around her? But she wouldn't listen. She stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. The next few months were filled with legal battles. My father filed for custody of Emily, and I insisted on being at the hearing. My mother's lawyer tried to paint my father as an absent father, but our lawyer was prepared. He showed the alimony payments, my father's attempts to stay in touch, and his stable life. And then, the bombshell, the investigator's report on Jake's fraud and my mother's affair. When the judge awarded my father full custody of Emily, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. My mother looked lost and defeated as we left the courtroom with Emily in my father's arms. She hissed, "This isn't over." But Grandma Helen shut her down. Yes, it is, Sarah. Go home. After that, things fell apart for my mother. The judge ordered her to pay child support to my father, and Jake disappeared, taking a large chunk of her savings with him. One evening, my father called me, his voice tense. Your mother showed up today, begging to reconcile. She said she made a mistake. My heart tightened, a flicker of old hope sparking. But I knew better. What did you say? I asked. He said firmly, I told her no. That ship has sailed. I won't put you or Emily through that again. I smiled. Good, Dad. We deserve better. Life has settled into a new rhythm. I'm at the University of Washington, studying interior design and business.